As you can tell from the convention hall ceiling, we are in Las Vegas, and I know that you want to see a fun travel montage of us getting on planes and getting off planes and doing stuff on this trip, but this is not a travel channel. We're here at the Supplier Showcase. Last year I did a video on why the Supplier Showcase is my favorite part of SHOT Show, so I'm not going to go into that again, but this is where small companies, and sometimes large ones, come along and demonstrate their injection molding capability or the other part making capability. And this is where a bunch of new companies begin, right here in this room. But I want to go downstairs and I want to talk to the biggest company at SHOT Show. Here in a somewhat drab-looking corner of SHOT Show is the Garmin booth. Now, you might not think of Garmin as being that big of a part of SHOT Show because they mostly sell watches and other technological stuff and no guns, but technically, last year, Garmin moved about $6 billion in revenue, which means I think they're actually the biggest company here. And when they go to other shows, they have a much bigger and cooler booth in this. At CES, they have a gigantic booth with all kinds of products in it. But interestingly enough, when they go to CES, they're not a very big company in the consumer electronics and watch space. Apple is bigger, Google is bigger, Samsung is bigger. But when Garmin comes here, they come to be part of the shooting, hunting, and outdoor trade show as not just a gigantic electronics company, but kind of an interesting part of SHOT Show. And I think they should be recognized as being a really important player in this space. SHOT Show, I believe, really needs Garmin. In some contexts, Garmin is the underdog that I really like in the electronics industry, but I think Garmin is a really cool example of somebody who's using technology well in a space that is full of amazing and cool companies and other companies that are a little bit maybe technologically behind. We have Garmin watches, and T-Rex sells Garmin watches. You might think that I like Garmin just because they're a good vendor and I like the product that we sell for them. But the Garmin watches are really cool. They're not just a consumer electronics thing. They are where a number of different pieces of Garmin technology come together. And Garmin just isn't making adventure watches for the outdoors because it's a market segment they want to tap into. There are other ways that they are involved in the larger shooting, hunting, and outdoor space, specifically the hunting. So I have to ask you some questions about product, but I know that you have a particular set of products that are near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
There's all kinds of Garmin stuff, but you love dogs.
I do. That's how I ended up here, all right?
I also love dogs, but I don't run dogs.
Yet.
I don't work dogs. Yeah, you're talking to me anyway. But walk me through your dog products, the collars, the trackers, and the stuff that they do.
Well, this is just going to be a sampling of some of them right here. These are going to be our newest right here. We're going to look at our T20 and TT25 right there. The TT stands for track and train. These are going to pair in, they're GPS-based collars. They pair in with our handheld, so you can track your dogs up to 9 miles.
And then there's a bunch of different ways to see the dogs on the map.
Absolutely, that's the Alpha 200. One that I really love is the Alpha 300. And this is a really cool unit. I kind of think of it as like a 3-in-1 system. When we look at it, it's kind of like a handheld GPS. You've got really robust navigation features on it. It is a training collar, so you have 18 levels of stim, vibration, tone. It can actually store, I think, up to 250 dogs. You can track dogs out to 9 miles. You can track 20 dogs at a time. It's really an all-encompassing unit, and it also has SOS functionality through the inReach right there, which I think is fantastic. These right here, they work on VHF system, so the VHF sends over to the handheld the GPS information, and that's where we get our location from. There's also one right here, it's the LTE. That one's a pretty new collar, and that can act as a standalone unit. So based on LTE, you can track your dog, just pair it directly to your cell phone, or you can use it as a redundancy system here for the collars.
Okay, so this is an area that Garmin has had a lot of products for a long time, they've had outdoor products for a long time. Is this the most hunting specific stuff that they started with? Because there's a bunch of stuff now. There's the chronograph, there's rangefinders for the crossbow, like there's a bunch of things that we've seen over there. Is this where most of the hunting stuff started, do you think?
I really like to say that Garmin's been in the hunting business pretty much since we first started. Our first handheld GPSs were with people in tree stands all the way from the beginning.
Yeah.
So Garmin is a GPS-based company. We have so much, history within that, and I think a lot of times people think of like individual products, like, oh, that's where Garmin comes in.
You're a watch company.
Yeah.
You're a car driving company. Yeah.
Right. But when you really start getting away from that one product and start looking at kind of the depth of the roster, as I like to say, really whatever you like doing in the outdoors, we've got something for it.
One of the cool things is now that Garmin has all these different technologies, like they have radio tracking and they have cell phone stuff they develop for other platforms. So putting in a dog collar makes sense. They have the inReach thing for satellite communication. So put in the dog tracker. So having all these different things that they can combine together I love it when things are greater than the sum of their parts. Garmin is a great example of having all these technologies, maturing them on their own, then connecting them together and having really robust stuff that does more things, like this bigger screen version.
Yeah, this is the Alpha. This is the Alpha XL. This is brand new today. This is a vehicle navigator, but what's really unique about it is it's a hunting-focused vehicle navigator, and this unit will actually pair directly with the collars, so you can actually track and train your dogs directly from this device and get to and from the field, city navigation, everything. And if you wanted to go sit on the tailgate, you can do that. You brought up something really interesting that I like telling people about, which is the ecosystem. Really, one of the things that I really love about Garmin is how many of the products work together, right?
Yeah.
So your watches can pair into the inReach. You can actually track your dogs off of the watches by pairing them together, so those systems work together. If you're out there and you need to find your dogs, you can find them now. This is a 2.5 second update rate. If you don't have cell service, you have the satellite technology through inReach. You can get in contact with people. You can let loved ones know where you're at. You can declare an SOS if you need to. That aspect of it, the outdoors have always been my life. I think it's incredible to see this technology helping people in the outdoors.
So this is a crossbow scope, which does a very interesting thing. Like, it is a regular scope, but it has a rangefinder built in and a ballistic calculator for crossbow bolts, which is kind of interesting. These are smaller versions, non-magnified versions that do really cool stuff, and they let you do things like drop pins, which then show up on your smartwatch. So there's just all kinds of really interesting opportunities that Garmin is able to pursue because they've already developed certain types of technologies and matured them in other product lines. And like I said before, last year, this little chronograph was one of the coolest things at SHOT Show. The ability to just clip this onto a rifle and record the velocity of all of your shots quickly and easily. I don't want to say that it was game-changing because I'm not a PRS shooter, but PRS shooters said that was game-changing. So as Garmin continues to develop stuff that fits inside of this hunting space, whether it is dog collars or rangefinders or that chronograph that they came out with a couple of years ago, I think that it is really nice to have a large, very successful technology company that wants to be in this space with us. They're not afraid of gun stuff or of hunting sports. And I think that dovetails really nicely with a bunch of their other technologies. So these over here are different types of chart plotters and readers. They have really complicated sonar for their boating space where they make probably a lot of their money. And then what's not here is a bunch of their aviation stuff. They're plugged directly into aviation and working with the FAA on various things, and that's all made in the United States. So there's a whole bunch of things that Garmin is doing that I think are really important. I think there's a bunch of lessons that the larger SHOT Show gun industry and gun community can learn from Garmin. Not only are they this successful business that is okay with working inside of the hunting space, but they have a lot of interesting experiences, a lot of interesting products. They're working in a lot of different silos, then figuring out how those tie together into that larger ecosystem. So yeah, as cool as Garmin is, just in a general nerd sense, I think it's really, really important that they're here at SHOT Show. I think that they are a really important larger industry partner, even though they have a relatively small booth. As you see, Garmin developing all these technologies, like there's dive watches and there's other boat-related stuff, and then there's watches that allow you to control the autopilot on your boat and all the other ecosystem stuff. Like, I'm excited about some of the satellite technology not only do we have the inReach stuff for emergency messaging and the SOS button and all that stuff, the new inReach Messenger has some extra stuff. So even this, the Iridium network is kind of old, but there's even new capabilities coming out of that. So what about this new Messenger Plus?
Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar, this is an inReach device, and inReach is a two-way SOS communication device, satellite communication device that, so you have the ability to text people, you have the ability to declare an SOS even without cell service. This is really a huge jump forward within that technology because now we have the ability to send photos and send 30-second voice messages. And what's really interesting is they're able to do that within the same form factor as the original Messenger. This is the Messenger Plus that has the photo and the voice messaging on that. For people who are in the backcountry a lot, people who just need a light, tough device, that one's perfect. And now with that new technology, I think it's great. Now you don't have to describe what the summit of a mountain's like. Now you can send a photo, or people can hear how excited you are when you're doing something, right? You send that back home. But from the perspective of if there's an emergency, you can also send a photo. This is what the situation is, or you can describe in a voice memo, like, hey, here's what's needed from that side. So there's a lot of application there. Yeah.
So you have all these different pieces. A lot of them, there's a bunch of stuff that Garmin does that isn't at the SHOT Show booth because it isn't directly related. How long have you been coming to SHOT Show for?
For Garmin, I think I've been coming about 7 years, and I think this is my 9th show total. I came prior because I was just in conservation.
How do you like SHOT Show? Like, what is you work for Garmin? You probably go to other shows. What is different or special about SHOT Show? Or what's the worst thing about SHOT Show? You can.
That's a great question. I said it the first time I came to SHOT Show. I said, I feel like everybody who works in this industry needs to come here at least once to see how large our industry actually is. I think a lot of times the industry can be a little bit siloed in terms of it's like, here's that. But this really gives an incredible snapshot of really just how large our industry is. The people here are great. You catch up with people you haven't seen for years. And it's also just a great opportunity to talk with a whole bunch of people who love the same things that you do.
I understand that you want a large, sweeping SHOT Show video that talks about all the cool stuff and, of course, the montage of traveling into SHOT Show. But this right here is some of the stuff that is most important to me. What are the companies that are really important, pivotal parts of the SHOT Show experience? What are the new companies, or what are the companies that are doing new things, or what are the things that are moving the needle or changing the direction a little bit? Are there companies where the stuff that they make is more than the sum of its parts? Are there companies that are here at SHOT Show that make the gun industry be more than the sum of its parts? Some of those are getting started at the supplier showcase upstairs as people are finding all the pieces for businesses that they are about to start. Others are companies that have been around for a long time, like Garmin, and are getting more and more plugged into this space and being a better example for others. So that's why we're talking about Garmin. But next week, we'll talk about some of the other shows. I will allow you to see other interesting SHOT Show material, like the AK-47 safety selector that goes on an AR-15. That's going to be the good stuff.